A young guy wakes up in an elevator underground, stopping at a strange place above the surface. A group of teenagers open the elevator and bring the new guy in the field. The guy seems confused and scared, surrounded by other guys, and runs away from them, but stumbles and faints. He is awakened by a guy named Albie, who explains that no one remembers anything when they come to this place. They remember only their names in a couple of days, and every month, a new guy is introduced in the same elevator box, along with some supplies for survival. The place is surrounded by unscalable metal walls, and the guys have built a little village inside. They grow their own food and take care of each other. Boys are divided into groups such as builders who build, med, jacks who tend to the wounds of people, and guys who guard the place and keep people from entering the huge maze behind the walls. The maze has a door which opens every morning, and runners are supposed to go inside and find a way out. However, no one wants to be a runner as they get to face deadly monsters called Grievers inside the maze. It is impossible to find a way in the maze as it changes every night, and teens have been looking for a solution to the maze for the last 3 years without any progress. They call the place Glade and themselves Gladers. They name the new guys Greenie until they remember their names. The young guy is named Greenie, and he meets Chuck, who came before him. Greenie is curious and tries to go into the maze, but is stopped by Gally, who guards the glade. At night, another guy, Newt, spends time with Greenie, but Gally challenges him for a bout. At first, the new guy is overwhelmed by Gally, but he eventually wins, to which Gally responds by knocking him down. As he hits his head, he suddenly remembers his name as Thomas. All the other teens rejoice and congratulate him, and all call it a night. Next morning, Albie takes Thomas to a wall where names are carved of all the Gladers. Thomas asks about the scratched-off names, to which Albie responds that these guys have died, and they have seen many dark days. He requests Thomas to be less curious and respect the Glade's peace and harmony. Thomas goes into the forest to get some manure when he is attacked by a guy named Ben, who behaves violently. He chases Thomas out in the Glade, but other guys intervene. They declare that Ben has been stung by a Griever, and he can't be saved as the virus will spread, making him mad and zombie-like. Before the maze closes, Ben is shoved inside and left to die. This deeply disturbs Thomas, and he questions the judgment of Gladers. At night, he dreams of a laboratory and sees a girl who assures him the wicked is good. He wakes up from the dream and sees Minho, who is a runner, and Albie going into the maze. Thomas asks Newt about why Albie went inside, despite not being a runner, to which Newt replies that we should trust Albie's decisions as he is the first one who arrived in the Glade. Just then, they hear strange sounds coming from the maze and gather around the door. Minho and an unconscious Albie arrive at the passage between the gates. Minho struggles to drag unconscious Albie along the passage to the outside of maze, and Gate starts to close in on them. This agitates Thomas, and he protests to help both in getting out of the maze, but no one attempts to move. Just as the door begins to close completely, Thomas enters the maze and nearly survives the crushing gates. Minho scolds him for entering and reveals that Albie has been stung, and he rendered Albie unconscious by hitting him in his head to slow the transformation. They hear the growling of Grievers, and Minho is sure that they won't survive the night. Thomas requests him to tie Albie to a vine and suspend him high above one of the walls to keep him safe. As they both do so, a wall opens and unleashes a Griever. Minho leaves both Albie and Thomas to save himself and runs away. Meanwhile, Thomas hides under the vines until the Griever is gone. He suspends Albie above the wall with vines and tries to hide from Grievers. Just then, a Griever descends from a wall and begins to chase Thomas. He runs along the maze and the walls start changing, making it difficult for him to find a safe space. He runs into Minho and they both run for their lives. Minho is very familiar with the maze and deduces that one wall is going to change, and I will become a barrier between them and the Griever. Just as he runs towards it, Thomas stops midway, planning to do something that no one has dared to do ever in the maze. He waits for the Griever to come at the edge of the closing wall and runs as fast as he can. Just as he makes his escape at the end of the wall, it closes completely, crushing the monster. Minho is shocked to see such daring from Thomas and commends him. Outside in Glade, teens are unsure of their survival and wait in the morning for the gate to open. Against everyone's expectations, Albie, Thomas, and Minho make it out alive, surprising the Gladers. Minho reveals to them about how Thomas killed a Griever. They meet up for a council and Gally is critical of Thomas's actions, calling him a threat to the Glade's peace. He points out that since Thomas's arrival, all things have gone haywire, and demands a punishment for breaking the rules of the Gladers. A disagreement is seen among the teens, and Newt asks for Minho's opinion. Minho commends Thomas's bravery and nominates him to be runner, to which Gally opposes. As they are arguing, a sudden noise is heard outside. The supply box is sent up earlier than expected, but with only a new teen who is a girl with a note in her hand that says she's the last one ever. This confuses the teens, and they fear that no more supplies will be sent up to them as the box doesn't go back in. The girl takes Thomas's name before fainting, and Newt inquires Thomas if he recognizes the girl. Thomas refuses and goes out to go back in the maze to investigate the dead Griever, but Minho stops him and asks to meet him later in the woods. They regroup, and Minho brings more people to go in the maze and help Thomas. They go together inside and find the dead Griever's body. Minho notices a red beeping dot, and they find a strange device inside the body. WCKD is printed on it along with number 7. They take it back and show it to Newt and Gally, but Gally is adamant to punish Thomas. So Newt decides to make him spend a night in the cage without any food, and declaring him a runner as well, which disappoints Gally. Minho takes Thomas to a secret safe house in the woods where they have made a miniature version of the maze. He discloses that the maze is divided into 8 sections, and it moves in a set sequence every night. He confesses that Albie has lied to everyone about finding a way to escape. However, there is no way out. Minho now believes that an escape is possible due to Thomas's arrival, and tells him that Section 7 should not have been open. As per the set sequence, however, it was. This demands some investigation, and they both should go and check out the same section with the newfound device. Gladers are unable to calm the new girl, and she hides from them, but lets Thomas talk to herself. He explains the Glade and everything else he knows about the strange situation and successfully calms her. She tells her name to be Teresa and confesses of seeing Thomas in her dreams. She presents him 2 vials that she found in her pocket. Thomas also admits of seeing her in his dreams. The vials are imprinted with WCKD, and Thomas thinks of injecting it in Albie to see if it can save him from the sting. Newt stops him from doing so, however, they don't have any other options as Albie is dying. They inject him with the vial and let him recover. Thomas spends his night outside in the cage, but Chuck visits him and gives him some food. He shows trust in Thomas's ability of saving the Gladers and hopes to be free from the Glade. Next day, Thomas and Minho visit Section 7 of the maze, and when they reach a certain wall, the device that they found in Griever's body starts beeping. As they move forward, beeping intensifies and leads them to a place which has been disclosed from the runners. They reach the end of the passage, and suddenly the device turns green. Another wall opens and reveals a path leading to a tunnel. The tunnel scans both teens, and an alarm starts blaring. Minho and Thomas make their way out and nearly escape the closing walls of Section 7. They come out and assume that the place they found must be the place where Grievers retreat at daytime. This way can be a means of escape for them, but Gally warns them about the consequences. And Thomas argues until Teresa announces that Albie is awake. When they meet Albie, he tells Thomas that he remembers everything and no one can survive the Glade. He tells Thomas that he's been a favorite of the people behind the maze. Just then, a commotion catches everyone's attention, and they see that the doors to the maze aren't closing. Instead, more doors are opening, surrounding the Glade, unleashing Grievers on the teens. Thomas takes everyone in the village for cover, while Gally takes a few in the supplier box. Thomas and others are attacked by the Grievers, and they try to take away Chuck, but Albie and Thomas help Chuck and stop the Griever from stinging Chuck. Albie cuts the virus-filled needle and saves Albie, but the Griever in turn takes Albie. Many teens are killed by Grievers, and the Glade is destroyed severely. Gally punches Thomas and accuses him of being the reason behind the destruction. Thomas wants to remember everything and injects himself with the virus-laced needle, but Teresa saves him by giving the last vial. Thomas wakes up in the morning unharmed and finds himself and Teresa captured in the cage. He tells Teresa that he knows his role behind the existence of the maze. Him and Teresa were part of the team that runs these experimental tests on people, and he has seen all of the teens in their childhood until they started disappearing one by one in the Glade. Teresa is confused and fails to understand why the people will send her and Thomas to the maze to die. Newt encourages them to focus on the present and finish what Thomas has started. Glade plans to offer Teresa and Thomas to the Grievers, but Newt, Minho, and others save them. Thomas explains that the only way out is from the maze, and they can't stay in the Glade forever, as it is a prison and not their home. Many teens join Thomas, but Glade and few teens decide to stay behind. Thomas with his team enters the Section 7 of the maze, and they follow the beeping of the device. They see a Griever and attack it together, but other monsters surround them, killing some of the teens. Teresa and Chuck reach the dead end, and the wall unlocks, revealing the path to the tunnel. They enter it only to be blocked by a lock that requires an 8-digit passcode. As the rest of them fight off the monsters, Thomas remembers the maze consisting of 8 sections and asks Minho to recite the set sequence in which the maze moves every night. They are attacked violently by the Grievers, and some other teens are ravaged by them. Minho recites the sequence, and they all nearly escape from the tunnel. As they come out, a passage is revealed, as Thomas remembers seeing it before. They reach an exit gate and enter it only to find a bunch of dead scientists inside. Thomas and Teresa remember working in the facility and find the surveillance room that kept an eye on the Glade the whole time. They come across a video footage in which Dr. Ava Page reveals herself as the director of World Catastrophe Kill, Zone Department, WCKD. She congratulates the viewers on successfully completing the maze trials and informs that sun has scorched the earth with its unbearable heat, destroying the environment and habitat. Famine and fires have killed billions, and a new virus called Flare has plagued mankind. This virus turns people into a zombie-like creature, and the facility has been on a long search of finding a cure. However, a new generation is found to be immune to the virus, so they were kept under supervision and were forced to go through rigorous tests and dangerous situations so that their brain activity can be studied to formulate a cure. Their methods haven't sat well with the soldiers, and they have gone behind her back to put a stop at the research. The teens see her shooting herself in the video and also notice her body lying in her office. They see Glade, who has followed them, being stung, and he shoots at Thomas, but Minho attacks him with a spear. However, Chuck has been shot while trying to save Thomas, and he dies thanking Thomas. Soldiers appear and drag out the alive teens and rescue them in choppers out in a desert. Dr. Ava is shown alive at the end, addressing her team and reminding them that those who survived the maze trials have just seen the beginning and will see more trials.